What's that sound? It's for amusement only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast. Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge, a much cheerier Nick Baldridge. Last episode was pretty pitiful, but I'm back and having a good time, and enjoying life. So, multi-bingo update. Still working on games. I'm cranking them out again. It's been a little while, but I'm getting back in the groove of it. I've been working on some oddball titles. I've knocked out the 3 hold feature games: Ice Frolics, Surf Club, and Palm Springs. Those 3 games are really pretty incredible and very interesting. The hold feature itself allows you to drop either the odd or even balls after playing the game, and Surf Club allows you to do it twice if you have the feature. Surf Club also has a really interesting scoring system. Aside from the regular spotted numbers that you can select, there's a super line which can be selected as part of the spotting selector on the front door, the big dial. If you rotate it and you have the feature lit, then you can light up 3 adjacent numbers in the super line, and if you get 2 of them, it scores as 4, and all 3 of them score as 5. I posted a write-up on that game on Facebook, and as part of that, I mentioned how difficult getting the super line is. I've seen a 3 inline on the super line happen once. But Phil Bogema, who's been on the show before, mentioned that the trick to the super line is to make 10 and 20. Not easy numbers, but certainly not that tough either. Then a 5 or 11 will give the 5 in the line score. Otherwise, you've got to hit the 16, which is tougher for sure. Always shoot for the 10 or 20 on your first ball. That is fantastic advice. I don't know why it's never occurred to me before. So once I get this rolling in the actual machine, I'll be able to test that and see how that goes. I'll be interested to see if that improves my ability to make the super line. But thanks, Phil, for your input. That is always welcome. And speaking of Phil, big announcement. Phil is bringing bingos back to the Rocky Mountain Pinball Showdown, which is happening June 9th through the 11th in Denver, Colorado. He's bringing a beautifully restored parade, which is a real rarity. You do not see those very often, as well as a Bally Showtime. Showtime and Parade are both Magic Squares games. Parade has an unusual feature. It's actually the only game that has this feature. It kind of works similar to the Magic Curtains in Miami Beach. And if you earn this feature, you can earn extra lines that have repeated numbers from the main 5x5 scoring card. And that allows you to make some combinations that you wouldn't otherwise be able to make, especially up in the corners where the magic squares are. So if you have magic squares lit A, B, and C, as well as the top extra line, then you're able to really make a difference, I think. I've been playtesting that one for a while in the multi, and I gotta say I like the gameplay. It's an interesting idea. I have a feeling that a better player would be able to exploit it a lot better than I do, but for myself, I find it very enjoyable, especially because those extra lines do not come up all that often, at least the way that I have mine implemented. So I'll be interested to hear Phil's take on that at some point. The other one, the Showtime, is a wonderful game. That's a Magic Squares game, but the squares, instead of being arranged on the corners of the 5x5 bingo card, are arranged all beside each other. So that is, I want to say it's the first game where you can rotate the center number, and that's a incredibly useful feature. So I'll be interested to hear the show report from Phil and see how it goes, but I'm very excited that bingos are getting out there, out west, and thanks very much, Phil, for doing that. In other multi-implementation news, I implemented 2 relatively rare games, or I should say unusual games, Bally Crosswords and Bally Spelling Bee. These are sister games. In fact, Spelling Bee is just a palette swap version of Crosswords, but the main idea is that you have an 18-hole playfield, and 16 of the 18 holes are letters. The other 2 holes are stars. And if you manage to spell a 3 or 4 letter word, then you'll be awarded a certain number of replays. The stars act as replay boosters. If you happen to land in one or both of the star holes, then the amount of replays that you can earn is vastly improved. You actually make your best payout by hitting holes number 1 and 6, which are the 2 star holes, and then making a 3-letter word. This is more difficult than it seems because of the letters that are required in order to get the win. It uses a unique layout for the 18 holes. It's not exactly the same as that used on Miss Universe or the 18-hole Continental. So what I will be doing is approximating it at the moment with a regular 18-hole Miss Universe playfield. That means that when you're playing my version, you'll have to do some mental math. Hole number 2 is A, for example, and so on. I haven't quite decided how I'm going to represent that. I've been thinking about perhaps alternating while you're playing the game between the instruction card and a picture of the playfield layout as it stands on a normal game, and that way you know which hole to shoot for. But we'll see. That's a little ways in the future. I need to build out the 18-hole playfield. I have a new old stock one with a apron and surround already installed, but I need to put on all the other hardware. So I've got a little work ahead of me for that. And aside from that, the next game I'm working on is Bally's Hi-Fi. Now, I've not heard very much good about this game. I've heard one person who has talked it up, and another person who has said that it's, relatively decent. And other than that, not a lot of love for this title. So there's a few games like that, and Hi-Fi, like most of those games, has a unique concept, and it's the only game that put that forth. That's why Parade is a little unusual, because I think its unique concept, and Miami Beach as well, their unique concepts are pretty fun, from a player perspective. Hi-Fi, the main thing that you can do is use solenoids to actually move the playfield. So instead of nudging the game, what you can do is a combination of nudging it and hitting a button to actually pull the playfield down and shoot it back up. This is called the bump feature, and again, only used for this game. I've heard that it just does not play very well, but I'll be interested to see that. I've got a friend who is going to help me. He told me that Hi-Fi actually does not have any unique parts as far as how the playfield is situated within the game. He said that there is a metal rod set of rods that protrude out the back of the playfield and go into this little cradle. And there's basically some springs and some coils, and that's how it works. So I should be able to approximate it. He's going to help me by getting me measurements or helping me weld up the little cradle or the little spokes that stick out of the playfield, and we'll see if they can be attached. He tells me they can. So, and I've never seen one, so I have no reason not to believe him. I'm very excited for that. I've been working on getting a few guests on the podcast. I've got several people lined up. I just need to make the time and actually record with them. And that should be pretty exciting. And aside from that, the outstanding games that I have left to make, that list is dwindling every day. I've got some games on there which I won't be able to playtest in the real machine for quite some time because of playfield rarity, or because I have the playfield but I need to build it out like the Miss Universe one. So I'm looking forward to getting the code reasonably, version 1 complete, and then going through and refactoring it, cleaning up a few rough edges, playtesting, fixing anything that appears to be buggy, and starting on some more cosmetic changes. And aside from cosmetic changes, Robo Frenzy, that's also on my list, is building that game. So I'd like to get started on that at some point in the relatively near future. But I am making good progress on the multi at the moment, so I hesitate to set that down. Anyway, life is full of choices, and I guess I'm making some. Or they're being made for me. It's one or the other. In other news, I was asked to teach a class at the Richmond Pinball Collective here on Memorial Day. And I went ahead and decided to teach a basic electromechanical maintenance, familiarity, repair type course. Essentially boiled it down to most of the tips that were in the early episodes of the podcast. Cleaning, making sure, there's no dirt, making sure switches deflect against each other, that kind of thing. And I had some illustrations that my wife had done of the actual units, and I brought some actual units, and I think it went very well. Had a lot of interaction with the folks in the audience, questions during the presentation, and a lot of questions after the presentation, which is a good sign. I mean, I think that folks are interested in listening, and I even met somebody. I used bingo manuals and schematics as examples during the presentation, and one of the folks in the audience said, "Hey, my dad has a bingo." So we got to talking a little bit about that. It's just amazing, the people that you meet doing pinball, or really any hobby, but pinball has some special people, and it's a lot of fun. So hopefully that helps somebody. It's really, really basic. But if anybody's interested, I did share it to the Facebook page, and there will probably be a higher quality version coming to YouTube at some point, and I'll share that link as well. But for now, if you're interested in seeing me blather on for a little bit over an hour about different parts inside a game, you're more than welcome to check it out on Facebook. And thanks to the Richmond Pinball Collective for having me there, and to my friend Taylor Reese for doing the filming. So he live streamed it while it was going on, which was pretty cool. So what's next on the list? Well, I've got manuals and schematics sitting right beside me here for Bally's Gaiety and Gay Time, the Magic Pockets games. If you'll recall, I have the playfields built out for those. However, I do not have the shutter motor or shutter boards attached to that playfield, so I'm going to need to do some magic there to make that work. But I'm really excited to get those going. I have a Magic Pockets unit attached to that playfield. I'm very excited about that. I am very, very cautious about damaging that Magic Pockets unit, so I'm going to write the code, test it like crazy with a lot of console logging to make sure that you can't accidentally hit both buttons at once and confuse the game and have it smash the left and right side hole hopper arms into each other. But also I've been talking with some custom pinball folks, and one of them offered to look at the code for me as well, and I think having a second set of eyes take a peek at it at least would be very helpful. So I'm very appreciative if he is still willing to do that, and I'll be chatting with him once I get that reasonably finished. And for those of you who might be interested, and maybe this is one of your first episodes, and if so, I'm sorry, there's a lot of talk. I make some assumptions at this point that you've heard some of the back episodes, and I probably shouldn't do that, and I'm sorry for that. But if you're just joining us here, the custom pinball community is actually incredibly supportive, and especially the folks doing either MPF or Pi P-Rock game using the P-Rock system or the P3 Rock. I really love that board set, the P3 Rock. Using that in the multi, and I've got to say it is fantastic to work with and very well designed. I've worked with a lot of different board sets, and there's usually something that I don't like about all of them. But I can't really say that about the P3 Rock. It has been not only incredibly reliable, but very easy to program for and wire up. I mean, everything is very clear and just works. I mean, it's beautiful. So if you're interested at all in making your own game, I would highly suggest getting that board set, because it's battle tested. A lot of custom games use it. The framework is very reliable and robust. You can do quite a bit with it. I'm doing some stuff that's really on the fringes, and I will say that with a couple little tweaks that I made to it in the beginning, mostly for display purposes, not even related to switch handling or anything important, it's been beautiful. I mean, it's really been a nice piece of software. So major kudos to all the folks that work on that. All the custom pinball folks, they let me bounce questions off of them. And a lot of the other podcasts out there, I talk with some of those folks and get their opinions on stuff. James Willing from Spooky Pinball, Brent and Whitney from Broken Token, and of course Taylor and Tommy from This Flippin' Podcast. Give those guys a listen. They put out good material. Final bit of news. I got a box of parts for my button drawer, so I should be able to complete that hardware-wise and start testing that software-wise. That should be pretty exciting. I've got some unique pieces that were necessary in order to make that happen, so I'm very excited to start plugging those together and see what sticks. Alright, and this one's not news, but while working on Hi-Fi, I noticed that there's a documentation error in the manual. There's a row of rivets which cannot be hit by any of the wipers on the spotting disc according to the manual. Unfortunately, those rivets are crucial for portioning corners and spotted numbers and a variety of other features. So I shot a question over to Phil Hooper, and he got back to me straight away and told me where the wiper was, the mystery wiper. There's a picture on IPDB that was clear enough to actually see, and there's an arm that's pictured in the manual that has no wipers at all, and that's the one where it's attached to. Odd, but true. So I've got to go through and change some of the portioning because I had assumed it was on a different arm. But then Hi-Fi should be pretty much ready to test. And again, I'll just be testing the plain bingo features, not the bump feature, because I don't have the cradle to test that actual feature. Today's featured game is 1951's Universal 5-Star. Universal was the gambling division of United, and they were in business in the one-ball years, 1940s to the 1950s. This game came right before the dawn of the bingo era, and was likely designed by Lynn Durant before he began designing the United bingos. This game is pretty unique. It's got a different layout than most of the other bingo games that were produced. This game has 12 different holes, each of which is a gobble hole. On the back box, there are 5 different cards, and for each coin, you light up one of the cards. Each card is a 3x3 grid, so a maximum of 9 numbers, and the way the payouts work is a little different than on many of the other bingo games that came much later. As in a typical bingo pinball game, you have to load up the ball and shoot and land in one of the holes that corresponds with a number that you want to get on one of the bingo cards that you have illuminated, so that you get 3 in a row. Now, any vertical row of numbers gives you 2 replays. Any horizontal row gives you 3. Any diagonal row gives you 5. And any 2 rows on one of the cards played gives you 20 replays. If you make a cross shape with the numbers which are illuminated, then you get 100 replays. And if you make an X, you also get 100 replays. Now, I mentioned the playfield has 12 gobble holes, and the reason this is important is because those numbers can be made more than one time. So you have 5 balls. Let's say you land in number 1 with your first ball, and then you shoot your second ball and land in number 1 again. Well, unfortunately, that second ball is just gone. You get nothing for that. So let's talk about the layout. There is, at the top, you have a typical rebound rubber and a one-way gate. And at the top you have 3 holes, 1, 11, and 2. In the middle row you have 8 on the left, followed by 7. And then up above and in the center you have the star hole. Over to the right you have the number 6 and then the number 5. And then the final row is 4, 10, 3, and 9. So as you can hear, you have to make your decision carefully as to where you're going to steer that ball. Make sure that it lands in a place that is going to help you make your 3 in a row, or your X or cross, as the case may be. Now, that star hole is very important in the center, and that's because the center number of each card is a star. The playfield has 5 stars, which are pointing up towards the center hole. What makes that interesting is I'm not sure if each time that you land a ball in there, if it lights a different star on the cards on the back glass, or if all the stars light with a single shot. Another thing that's interesting, in the typical ball return position, what you have is a kicker. And that kicker is positioned in such a way that it appears that it will kick the ball straight into the star hole. The star hole is surrounded on the left and right side by posts, and on the top by a triangular post, which is illuminated. This means that you have to be coming in at a pretty particular angle in order to land in that star hole from the plunge. Instead, you're going to have to skillfully nudge the game such that it falls down to that kick out at the bottom, or you get some good rebounds from the rubbers, which are stretched across on the left and right sides between 8 and 7 and 6 and 5. Get your bounce just right and then swirl around in the star hole. So, I mentioned swirl around. These gobble holes are designed like United kickout holes of later days, where it's essentially a big insert that has a huge concave area on the outside. You're attempting to get into or out of that depression, and it can be very hard to steer the ball back out once you land in that. So this game looks pretty challenging and very interesting, especially for the time period. There's a couple of plastics with artwork on them, which is unusual for a bingo style machine. And oddly, it looks more like traditional bingo pinball than the games that were made by United first, ABC and Bolero, that used the roulette style playfield. Very interesting. So let's talk about the artwork. This game reminds me a lot of United's Playtime. Playtime has a sports theme, as does Universal 5-Star. There's 5 different athletes, each competing in a different sport. You have a diver near the top of the back glass, a tennis player, a basketball player, a skier, and a roller skater, or roller derby competitor. And then on the playfield, you have a reprise of those, but they have different coloration, which is a little unusual. The main color on the playfield is blue, or bluish green, and then the holes themselves are mostly yellow, arranged in a pattern shaped like a bird. And then you have 5 red holes, 1, 2, the star hole, and 4 and 9. On the left and right sides of 4 and 9, you have plastic shields with artwork, including the tennis player and the skier. And then down below, there's a long stretch of rubber between the plastic shield and that kick-out hole down at the bottom. So as I say, this game looks very interesting and certainly very different. Different player than what we're normally used to in the bingo pinball world. But I've got to say, it looks pretty challenging and pretty fun. Replays can be played off, and I'm sure they can be knocked off, as with most of Universal's games. I'm paging through the manual right now, which happens to be on Phil Hooper's site, bingo.cdyn.com. Okay, looking at this, it appears that there's a merchant's reset button that can be depressed by the location attendant. This will reset the replay register unit to 0 and record the number of unused replays on the meter. This button is located at the back of the ledge under the front door of the cabinet. The playfield and back glass are both very colorful. Let's take a look at the cabinet. That thing is crazy. I'm looking at it now. It's very different. The head sits atop of the playfield, which is very short, and the cabinet itself has a green base coat, yellow stars, and red swirls. The swirls come out from the center of the front door, which has a key right in the center. And on the left side and right side, those swirls come up and around from the back. Down at the bottom, there are brown and black stripes which go across. This is a very interesting cabinet. I'll put a link in the show notes. Go take a look. And this is a beautiful example that's in here as well. Well, that's all for tonight. Thank you very much for joining me. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call me on the Bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to us on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Casts, via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, also at Bingo Podcast, or you can listen to us on our website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.